Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about 3 AI automations that every business should have, if not already. These 3 workflows will automate everyday tasks for every business that will save you and your team a lot of time to focus on other tasks. For the first one, let's call it voice to invoice. So basically, for every business, we got to do invoices. But doing invoices is just tedious work that we hate, but we all like money. So, we're going to have to do it. With this workflow, all you got to do is just record a voice note in terms of hey, I need an invoice for person A, for services B. I'm going to charge them this much for that service. And this automation is going to automatically take, your voice note with everything you need to tell, I guess, your AI automation or AI agent, whatever you want to call it, and it will create that invoice in your invoicing software automatically. So in this example, we're going to turn the voice message into a QuickBooks invoice. And don't worry about following this step by step. We have tutorials on each of these workflows on the channel. So whenever you're ready to actually build this automation, just go follow it. And all these automations are built without any coding. You'll see what I mean. So basically, we're using Zapier as a platform. Our first step here is Jotform. What's happening here is that we're going to be using Jotform to record the voice note. And as soon as we record the voice note, the next step is OpenAI, and we're using their Whisper, and we take the voice note and we transcribe it. And then we go to third step, which is where we use ChatGPT to extract the important information we need from that invoice. So here we're extracting the customer name, services requested, the cost of services, and the tax code we might be needing for the invoice. And our next step is to find that customer in QuickBooks or any accounting software you might want to use. Here we're searching the customer in our QuickBooks, and if we can't find the customer, we have an option here to create a new customer automatically. So just a single check and we'll be able to create a new customer if it's not already there. Again, based on your automation, maybe you do get a lot of repeat customers, maybe you always get new customers. You can sort of figure out the step if this is something that's required for automation or not. And also the next one as well, which is what sort of tax you want to apply to the invoice. So this may seem complicated, but this is just personal flow where I'm just checking what is the tax code that from the data that I'm extracting initially. And if the tax code is we need to charge the tax, I have a different path. If I don't have to charge tax, there's a different path. And if for some reason and information is missing, I have this condition where I'm just gonna send myself a Slack message so I can just go into the system and do stuff manually. So this is a way to not get any errors, or if something's missing, I can just make sure my invoicing are still being created and I'm aware that invoice wasn't automatically created. Again, it's very optional depending on whatever your workflow is. Leave a comment if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer to see if there's any pointers you need. But basically for every path, once we have the chosen path, we have the information from the voice note and the customer details in QuickBooks and create that invoice in our accounting software. And our last step here is to create the draft in the inbox. So as soon as I create the invoice, it's going to have the link in my inbox, in my drafts. So I can just review quickly to make sure everything looks good. And I'm going to send over the invoice to the client.
Cool.
So instead of you spending all the time going onto your accounting software, creating the customer, finding the customer, writing things out, creating the invoice, getting the link, sending the email, it's all done automatically and it requires no coding. So leave a comment if you think there's a good reason why everyone shouldn't be actually building this automation to go from voice to invoice. Anyway, let's move on to the second one. So this one's super useful if you do have a lot of customers or you get a lot of support inquiries. Basically what's happening here is that as soon as a customer sends an inquiry, maybe they're requesting for services, maybe they're requesting support, we have a response automatically ready to go in our inbox. So instead of us looking at the message, then trying to create the response and then send it, our first version of the response is automatically ready to go in our drafts folder. This could work with Google Forms. It could work with pretty much anything you're using on your website to collect your customer feedback. So here I'm using Airtable in terms of any message they want to send us. First of all, we have an Outlook step figure out, which will automatically send them a message saying hey, thanks for reaching out. We will get back to you shortly. So we're just doing the step just so that the customer is aware that we have received their message and then we will get back to them shortly. So they're have that initial comfort that someone is looking after whatever the inquiry is. And our next step here is to use ChatGPT. So here in our prompt, we just sort of feed AI all our FAQ stuff. So most of the questions are usually FAQ. So this could be a document which you can upload or keep on updating based on the new questions added. The idea is that we sort of let AI know what sort of information the customers usually ask for and what are the answers for those. So that way, every time there is a new inquiry, we use AI and then we use that information that's fed to AI to create a draft response to that question. For example, maybe someone's requesting on how do I get a refund or how do I cancel my subscription? If it's a SaaS product or it's a services, they're requesting for what would this package include? Basically answers to those questions will be in our ChatGPT step, and then ChatGPT can use that information to create that email response back to the user. And our next step here is again connecting our inbox. So this could be Gmail, Outlook, anything you use, and our body would just be the draft response which AI generated for us. Again, we could send this response directly as well, but we're not doing that because AI AI could make mistakes, or maybe it's not reading the question correctly. So we just want to have this response in our drafts. So as soon as we see the customer inquiry, we see the AI generated draft response, we do a quick human review and we send it away. So if you don't have, big support team, or like, you're building on a side project, this is super useful to like sort of put a lot of customer support on autopilot. Again, we're not like really eliminating the human factor here. We're just using AI as an ally to help us draft those responses so we can go through a lot more tickets, a lot more support inquiries more quickly. All right, moving on to the next one. This is one of my favorite ones. If you're a business, you get a lot of leads through email, you can automatically like add those leads to your CRM. So you never have to worry about like adding stuff to your CRM. It's like sort of done on autopilot all the time. So basically what's happening here is that as soon as I get a new lead by email, so I create content, I do get a lot of inquiries about partnerships. You could use form as well, but I've just noticed that sometimes it's just easier for people to send me an email because they just want to add more details for the fields that are not on the form. So those sort of scenarios, this is perfect. So every time I basically like filter on some keywords, which I think the lead will be using. For example, in my case, it's collaboration, partnership, sponsorship, paid. So that's gonna like filter all my other messages because I don't want this automation to kick in for like every email I get. So this is how I use the filters by Zapier to sort of like filter the emails that I want this automation to run on. And my next step is to use ChatGPT to extract the structured data. I've added some values that I want AI to extract. In this case, it's budget, email, point of contact, company data, product information, and what they're sort of looking for. So I'm gonna extract all this information automatically from the email, and I'm gonna add it to my CRM, which in this case is Airtable. So now I'm just gonna like add all this data to my Airtable, and it's gonna map it one-to-one. So every morning I can, instead of like, going through my emails, perhaps I can just go to my Airtable and see like, what sort of leads that came through, who they are, what they want, and I can choose to respond accordingly. I can prioritize the messages accordingly. So that's pretty much the automation. As a reminder, like I said earlier in the video, step-by-step tutorials on how to build this automation is in my playlist AI automations. So check that out once you're ready to build this. I say like carve like an hour, in the next couple of days to start playing around with this. Trust me, it's a slippery slope. You're gonna get addicted and you'll be like, I want to automate literally everything. I've been there, done that, and that's what I do now. And if this video was useful, leave a comment, give a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel to learn more about AI tools and workflows to help you get work done faster so we can have more fun time in next year and not worry about these like boring tasks. See you in the next one.